Hi there, my name is Mary Kilolea. Welcome to the To Be Bolder podcast, providing career insights for the next generation of women in business and tech. To Be Bolder was created out of my love for technology and marketing, my desire to bring together like-minded women, and my hope to be a great role model and source of inspiration for my two girls and other young women like you, encouraging you guys to show up and to be bolder and to know that anything you guys dream of, it's totally possible. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. Hey there. Today we're going to talk about a hot topic for many women that are transitioning from corporate leadership to successful entrepreneurship with my guest today, Deb Boulanger. Deb is an inspiring business mentor, thought leader, and speaker who has dedicated her career to helping high-achieving women confidently step into entrepreneurship. As a CEO of Life After Corporate and the host of the Life After Corporate podcast, Deb is a powerhouse when it comes to guiding women through the often daunting shift from a corporate career to a thriving coaching or consulting business. With over 25 years of corporate leadership experience, managing multi-million-dollar business lines, Deb knows firsthand what it takes to navigate career transitions, build sustainable businesses, and break through mindset blocks that hold so many women back. Her no-nonsense strategic approach has helped countless women turn their expertise into profitable businesses. And today she's here to share her wisdom with all of us, and I'm thrilled to have her here. Thank you so much for being here, Deb.
Mary, it's my pleasure. I'm excited for the conversation.
Okay, so we had a chance to talk a couple times the other day, and I was like, okay, this woman and I have just such good synergy together. So I'm excited. Tell everyone kind of your journey in the corporate world, so they have that background understanding of the roles that you had and how you got there.
Yeah, so my beginning was really as an educator. I have a degree in elementary school education, and after teaching in the 80s for 4 years and getting such poor pay that I was waitressing 4 nights a week, I decided to get a job in business. And I started in sales. And because I'm a problem solver and pattern identifier, I would always spot these challenges that we were having because as a really fast growing startup, I worked for Gartner back in the day. And I would then say, hey, we have this challenge and I'd like to go solve it. And the leaders in the company always said yes. So I went from sales to marketing communications, hit my first glass ceiling, left for 7 years, came back as a VP of product development, and kind of the rest is history from there. My pattern recognition served me well in market research and product development. And then I was developing all and testing all of these concepts with these business units only to see these ideas really fly off the shelf as new programs that the company was launching. And that's when I said, hey, I want to own one of these. And when I decided that my corporate career was complete, there was nowhere else I wanted to go, I decided, well, I know how to do this. If I can do it for the company, I can do it for myself. And lo and behold, I launched my own business, and it was so much harder than I thought.
So you mentioned it was harder than you thought. Let's talk about some of the lessons that you learned.
So getting the inspiration to launch my business was truly the easy part. The harder part of it all was dialing in, who am I now? And it's such a huge identity shift when you're used to having your calendar set up for you. You get into the office at 8 o'clock in the morning and you have about a half hour of getting your act together, and then boom, your day is taken off. Like your day is predetermined for you. And so are your goals, and so are your expectations. And now suddenly you find yourself sitting at your desk with a lot of ideas, not sure where to focus first, and no real discipline around your calendar because the priorities haven't been established yet. And so for me, I started my business not as a business launch and growth expert. I started my business as a life reinvention coach because that's what I was going through at that point in time. And so I was newly minted, new certification. I felt like the newbie on the block, not completely sure of what I was doing or how I was going to get clients. What I learned those first couple of years is that when we make this transition from corporate leader to business owner, it's not your latest credential that you're bringing to the market. It's the complete compilation of your lifetime of experience, including other things that you did before you even got to corporate. So I mentioned teaching and teaching other people. When I discover a path or I have a framework or a template, my next desire is who can I teach this to so that they can have this experience too. So it was everything. It was the teaching, it was the personal development that I had gone through and breaking through psychological barriers. It was the frameworks that I had developed when I was at Gartner on how to launch things, how to do market research, how to test the market and bring high demand services that people wanted to sell, people wanted to buy, that were easy to sell.
Everything that you just said resonates so strongly with me because I am going through that transition right now. So I'm like, check, check, check. As you were talking, I'm like, okay, I got to book an appointment. Um, what do you tell the women who, because there's so many women that work for corporate and their title is their identity. How do you help them detach from that? I mean, you talk about looking at the full picture, but I know there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah, and it's more of how do they integrate with that and not detach from it. So when we are in the corporate world and when we have achieved great things. And for some of them, they always had that ideal, like, I want to be in the C-suite or I want to be a senior executive. For me, I didn't really have that direction. All I knew was I love to solve problems and I like to achieve things and I liked recognition. So that was, and I was slightly insecure. So that's a perfect recipe for corporate success, right? So you work hard to get the recognition. You happen to be smart, but you don't know it, all of those things. And so you don't leave that achievement behind. Like, I am proud of the work that I did when I was in corporate. I am proud of the level of success that I achieved. I never imagined that that would be my path when I was getting my degree in education. So I think you don't throw that away. It's just that you add, you round it out. You round it out with bigger leaps and moving through imposter syndrome in a new way, taking bigger risks. So, in some ways, yes, you're leaving the title behind and you are a beginner, which is really hard for accomplished women to tackle. It's like, wait a minute, I knew everything. I had it locked and loaded. I knew how to manage internal politics. I knew how to be successful. And now suddenly here I am and I don't have a clue. I think the hardest piece is not letting go of the title, but to embrace the beginner's mind of, oh, I do need to learn new things. I am new to this. And it feels a little uncertain and insecure.
And how do you stay resilient during that um, moment of, stepping off the ledge and being uncomfortable? Because I know there is growth in that. I mean, everyone says it and I believe in it, but resilience is required.
Yes, and now more than ever. I mean, we're recording this podcast at a very strange time in history and a very challenging time for women everywhere. And so whether you're still in corporate or you're making this leap, resilience is the number one attribute that you need to embody. And for me, it was a journey of faith
Mm.
because I felt called to do this. It wasn't an idea that I incubated in a vacuum. It was something that I felt called to help other women like, oh, wow, I kind of created this level of awareness about this stage of life I am in right now and how my needs have changed, my desires have changed, and what I want in my life has changed. I can share this with other people. And so it came from a desire to share and to help others along the way. And I have felt that responsibility, but it is a calling. And in our corporate swag, we have resilience revolutionary, printed on the sleeves of our sweatshirts because resilience is key.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about life after corporate. appropriate name. Give us an overview of your company, who you serve, the things that you offer, and we'll start there.
Yeah, when I first started, I took everybody. It's like if
Hmm.
you want to launch a business, I can help you, as long as it's a service-based business. And what I learned along the way is the way I think, the way I operate, and where I've come from, how I speak, and how fast I move resonates most strongly with other corporate women. So I work only with corporate women leaders. When I first got started, most of them were in their 50s, some in their 60s. Now I'm finding younger and younger leaders coming to the entrepreneurship table in their early 40s or some in their late 30s. And it doesn't matter where you are in your corporate journey. It matters that you've had that corporate experience because you'll resonate with how I teach, how we operate inside our programs, which are the Launch Lab if you're just getting started, and the Reliable Revenue Mastermind if you're looking to scale up revenues to mid six figures. And so I learned early on, and it's a journey everyone takes. Because you'll kiss some frogs before you find your ideal clients, but that is also a key part of the journey.
Um, so like I said before, I'm kind of your ideal client in the sense that I'm trying to get clarity. How do you help women get clarity when there's fear of leaving money on the table, or they see themselves being good at multiple things? How do you work someone to feel secure in their clarity choice?
Yeah, absolutely. So clarity is the very first step. And like you just voiced, there's a lot of things going on in your mind. And so the first step is learning how to master what's going on in your mind. Literally, it's not a business skill. It's about let's get clear on what that internal talk track is. The very first thing that you do in the launch lab is identify your self-sabotage pattern.
Mhm.
Because if anything's going to take you down, let's call it out front so that we're aware of it, right? And a lot of that is happening right now. And it happens to women before they take the leap. Like, what happens if I'm not successful? What happens? I mean, I've had conversations with women who said, I'm so afraid to leave my corporate job. I don't want to be homeless. I don't want to live in a box under a bridge. Well, that's not likely to happen. That's a fear-based response. So, in order for you to take powerful action, we need to get fear in its place and you need to take control.
That's such good advice. What financially do you advise someone? Like there's obviously some situations where you get severance, which is wonderful, I think, because I'm just not about entitlement. So I think things like that are truly gifts.
Yeah.
I guess what's your recommendation for someone listening?
Yeah. And it varies. There's no one solid path to replacing your corporate salary. I would say make sure you have at least a cushion of a year. And
Mhm.
what most people don't realize is once you leave your corporate job, your expenses go down, right? So you're not buying the clothes, you're not spending money on the gas. There's a lot of expenses you don't have. And there's also a lot of habits that we have when we have a big salary. We feel entitled to, buy the designer bag. Like there's no need for that stuff right now. And so your expenses go down. So the money you have tends to stretch longer. If you can also have another financial cushion, savings that you've set aside, a home equity line of credit, a partner who's willing to foot the bills while you ramp up your business. Those are all great things to have in place until you feel like you have a solid footing and you've got this machine of sales and marketing going, at least for the time being, because everything changes, everything shifts. We want to be current to what's happening right now. But you do need that cushion. And it takes a year or two to replace a corporate salary, honestly, depending on how much money you were making.
What do you tell the women who are recently kind of shell shocked because they were laid off and did not see it coming? What I find is people get stuck in that shell shock mode way too long.
Yeah, and then there's this, well, maybe I'll hang out my shingle, maybe I should go look for another job. And there's this point of vacillation and indecision. And what I always say is that the universe can't deliver on a split desire.
Mm.
It's you have to decide, are you all into the job search and then lean into that? And who are you at this stage in your life? What does that ideal assignment look like to you? And or lean into the entrepreneurial journey. What is that vision for the change and transformation I want to bring to the world? What is the problem I solve? Who are the people I serve? And how do I package, price, and message that and bring to the world? And you need to be all in that place. If you're not passionate about entrepreneurship, it's probably not for you.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
not a
and
fail safe if you can't get a job.
right. No, that is such an excellent point because I think with, looking on your social scrolls, everyone looks like they're doing so fantastic in their social entrepreneurship, which they don't show any of the struggle or any of the real data around finances and all that. That is such an important thing for women to realize that staying in corporate and transitioning to a different job is acceptable.
Yeah, absolutely. And for some of my clients, that has meant a part-time opportunity that brings in a little financial relief
Mhm.
while you're building your business on the side. And so you're 50% in entrepreneurship, but you're also being an entrepreneur in that you've got a part-time job and your part-time client is actually the investor who's helping
Mhm.
you invest and launch this business. So it's really how you frame it in your mind. It's not that you've sold out. Many people feel shame
Mhm.
about, oh, my finances aren't where I need them to be. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling like I need to get something. Well, get a half-time job. Get a part-time job if you can.
What's one piece of career advice that you wish you would have received while you were in corporate and then now as a business owner?
Wow, I grew up in the corporate ranks when there wasn't a whole lot of support for women leaders. Like having that seat at the table was a struggle. And there were many young women who were in my office, sitting in that chair across from my desk, saying, "Deb, how do I do it? How do I get to the next level in my career?" And, part of it in corporate is that it's not safe to stand out. So how you succeed in corporate is by fitting in. And I think if I had my younger self, I wish someone had said, "Deb, here's where your magic is." I wish someone reflected back to me. It didn't happen until I was in my mid 50s. And one of my leaders, who I had a love-hate relationship with, truthfully, but he said to me, he said, "Deb, you have something really special that most people don't have." And he was someone who I really respected. He was a former partner in a big consulting firm. And he said, "You have that ability to recognize patterns, knit together solutions, and bring them to market. And that is a rare skill." And I thought, little me with a degree in education from Lesley University and, hearing from this guy who has a degree in rocket science from MIT saying I had something special. I really wish people had been more generous with their positive reflections as I was going up the ladder. But I think when you're trying to bring change and you get excited that sometimes you can threaten people internally, and what they want to do is they want to keep you in the box and keep you small and keep you contained. And I think bosses and mentors who understand what your secret special sauce skills are and let you bring them to the table, those are the ideal opportunities.
Oh, 100%. So as a corporate woman or as an entrepreneur and designing your own business, personal branding comes into play. What is your advice or philosophy around personal branding?
I think entrepreneurship and corporate leadership is about being a thought leader. And I think really leaning in these moments, and I think sometimes we're on the treadmill and we don't take time to really reflect on our own. But what is that impact that you want to make? And what do you want to be known for? Again, in the Launch Lab, our very first step is what is your life experience? What were those high points? What were those low points? If you're to leave a legacy and you want to look back and be really proud of the change that you've brought in your lifetime, like what do you want that to be? I mean, for me, it's all about giving women a choice of
Mm.
how they earn a six-figure salary. If corporate is your jam and you thrive in that environment, you go, girl. Get that seat at that table, rise up that corporate ladder, be a leader. And if that's not you, if that crushes your spirit, or if you find that a toxic culture, then it's entrepreneurship. And so my whole mission is to close the revenue gap with women founders, because what we've learned in these last few years is that women on average are earning 30 cents to the dollar compared to men in entrepreneurship. And that is all about the psychology of self-worth.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey, listeners, look, we all know that being a woman in the male-dominated tech industry is tough. You have to do everything the guys do, but backwards and in heels. That's why I'm such a fan of the podcast Be the Way Forward from AnitaB.org. Brenda Darden-Wilkerson, the CEO of AnitaB.org and host of Be the Way Forward, is having thought-provoking conversations with leaders from companies like Adobe, Slack, Google, about fear, failure, and the faith to get back up again. That's right, not success, but the moment when everything went wrong, and what they've learned from some of their worst mistakes. Because we can learn so much more from things that go wrong than from things that went right. Every episode is full of insights, tips, and actionable advice you can use in your own career. Sometimes you don't need your she heroes to teach you how to soar. You need them to teach you how to fall flat with grace. So listen to Be the Way Forward wherever you get your podcasts, or watch at AnitaB.org/podcast. Oh, that's fascinating. So you're saying that women have a hard time pricing themselves appropriately or competitively?
Yeah, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Right? So we live in a culture that has conditioned us to be second or worth less, right? So we are of a lesser value. We are the caregivers. We're expected to do different things. We're feminine, we're emotional, but we're not seen as high-powered decision makers or change makers. And so that unconscious conditioning gets embedded in our psyche. And so when it comes to pricing your services, people are thinking, oh, well, I want to be affordable.
Mhm.
And it's not about being affordable, because you'll starve if you're not profitable. It's about pricing your services based on the transformation you deliver. And that's where, there's a lot of unlearning that needs to take place from a conditioning perspective. And a lot of it happens in corporate too. It's like we're not aware. You can't read the label from inside the jar, right? We're just conditioned to comply. And I don't know if you ever had this experience, but I remember sitting in a colleague's office and he mentioned something about our 30% bonus. And I said, 30% bonus, eh?
Mm.
Mine's only 25%. And I went to my boss and I said, can you explain this to me? And it was, oh, I didn't know that. We'll fix that right away.
Wow.
So it happens. And, unless you're willing to come to terms with it and call it out and own your value and own your worth, entrepreneurship is a rough road.
So let's talk about work-life balance, because I think there's a fallacy that if you work for yourself, it looks like a 20-hour work week. And we both know that's not true. So what is your perspective on work-life balance for both corporate, because obviously you were very high in the ranks there, and how you did that, and then also what it looks like now as a businesswoman?
I think, it's work-life blend, right? I think balance is a fallacy. I think there are times in our lives where, we need more downtime, and there are times in our lives where we need to push the needle a little harder, a little further. And certainly when you're first starting out and you're building everything from scratch, your technology, your marketing, your messaging, your assets, your marketing assets, your product assets, then there's a lot of investment that goes in that. And also, even as you're more mature, I mean, my business is 11 years old now, and we launched the Launch Lab 8 years ago. It's not a set it and forget it. The market's changing, you're changing, your clients' needs are changing, so adapting there. It's a long way to say that it's important to have a strong set of priorities. And when you first get started, business development is 80% of your focus. And if you find yourself in the trap of service delivery taking up 80% of your time, then once that engagement is done or once that cohort is complete, you're going to find yourself struggling because you haven't consistently built up that pipeline of new business coming in. So it is a balance. I'm not a fan of overwork. I don't work all the time. I happen to love starting at 10 a.m., wrapping up my day at 5 p.m. And I love Saturdays and Sundays. So my partner volunteers at a wildlife reserve, and that gives me Saturday and Sunday mornings, which are late morning is my most creative time. And I'm writing, I'm doing my newsletters, I'm doing planning, visioning, playing with ChatGPT, all of the things. So for me, that's my blend. And everyone else has a blend. If you're a mom and you've got young kids and you're ending your day at 3 o'clock because you got school pickup, and then you're working again from 8 to 10, then that's your blend. So
Mhm.
I think it's important to have a blend, but if it feels like you're heading to burnout, that's when we need to pause and take a look at, how are you organizing your time? How are you prioritizing what's on your plate? Because we can only handle about 3 or 4 priorities at any given point in time.
I love this conversation. There's only a couple more topics I want to touch on due to time, but let's talk about networking because I think a thing that I've observed is a lot of these people who are surprised by the layoffs. They haven't made the investments to build the relationships or nurture, or they only think their network should be within, or they've only spent time within their circle, within their office, within their network, within the corporate setting. What words of advice do you have for women on networking?
Networking is super important. And I didn't realize it when I was in corporate, but it was the first thing I dove into in my entrepreneurial space. And everything happens to me accidentally because I just have a nose for something and I try something out and then it works. And it's just like, oh, in retrospect, this is a great strategy. Let's rinse and repeat this. Um, so networking is important. I happen to be a huge fan of Elevate Network. I'll give it a little plug. It's a great network of professional women leaders. It also has a great community of women entrepreneurs. In fact, I launched the Luminary Entrepreneurs Roundtable in 2018. We started in New York and then COVID hit and we brought it globally. And I did that for 3.5 years. That was our lifeline. Your network, you've heard it say your network is your net worth. I know about that, but it is your lifeline. It's where you can go to the table, be somewhat vulnerable in a safe container with trusted relationships and ask for support and guidance. And I think that's not available to women. I think the coaching industry has changed. Now there's coaching available for people at lower levels. Um, when I was a group vice president and I asked for some leadership coaching support, I was told that was only available to the C-suite. So, I think networks are super important. As an entrepreneur, your network is a great place to start. And then pretty soon I want you to get in front of the room because the best way to build up a mailing list, a portfolio of connections, reliable referrals is to be the leader. And again, that was an accidental realization. It happens to be I love to lead. I love to be in charge. And so I would start things and I would start communities within these larger networks. And then I would realize a year later that, oh, wow, that was a 6-figure lead stream for me. Maybe I should do more of that. Maybe I should join a couple of other communities. So networking is essential.
What does to be bolder mean to you?
To be bolder means that you are willing to overcome your limiting beliefs and habits to do the thing that feels really uncomfortable. Your potential and the zone of all possibilities exists outside of that comfort zone. And visibility is currency. And for many women leaders who are comfortable inside the confines of corporate, that level of visibility, whether it's speaking on stages, being on video, there's a level of discomfort there that you can't afford
As we wrap up, do you have any closing thoughts for our listeners?
Lean into the intuition. We have a saying in my circle that you trust the niggle. The niggle is that little thing inside that's like calling you forward and that you question. I remember when I first got the calling to launch my business, I was thinking, are you crazy? Do you know how much money I make? You're asking me to like give it all up. And so it was a little dialogue that I was having back and forth with my higher self. Trust the niggle. And also, when it comes to launching your business, really lean into that transformation that you deliver. People don't buy services, people don't buy features. People buy the transformation that you're delivering. And so price your services based on the value of that transformation. And if you're not sure how, we have some free resources on our website that'll help you get there.
And great place to end. What is your website?
It's lifeaftercorporate.com.
Thank you so much for being here. It is just a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you so much, Mary. This was such a fun conversation.
Thanks for listening to the episode today. It was really fun chatting with my guest. If you liked our show, please like it and share it with your friends. If you want to learn what we're up to, please go check out our website at 2bboulder.com. That's the number 2, little b, boulder.com.